Hello there, and welcome to episode 2 of the RedShark Interview, where we dive deep into the people, stories, and tech shaping creative work. I'm your host, Chris Wells, and in today's episode, we're chatting with Mark Bustard, executive producer for the brand new division of live events at Dimension Studio, one of the world's most advanced volumetric 3D capture and virtual production studios. You will have definitely seen some of their work before on many a Netflix viewing or cinema trip. So this new live division is looking to bring that groundbreaking filmmaking technology, like giant volumes, 3D capture and virtual humans, to immersive concerts and live events, where there is no second take. I just said that to be dramatic, but it's true. And we do talk about how much risk planning is needed to make those one-shot moments work. I had an absolute blast talking with Mark, who was one of those jobs I hadn't actually thought about before. His history is as an event producer, that person that brings everyone's expertise together to make something far bigger than the sum of its parts. He's worked on the biggest events like London's New Year's Eve fireworks, U2 concerts, the London Olympics, and even a Super Bowl. And I couldn't resist asking him about this, because it's so easy to forget that behind all those massive events, there are real people thinking and planning and working together to make them all happen. And so, let's hear from Mark about how Dimension Live is making gigs and events more magical with cutting-edge technology. Hey Mark, how's it going?
I'm really well, thanks, Chris. Thanks for having
good.
me on.
Yes, no, thank you. So, very excited to have you on today. So, your current job title is the executive producer for live events at Dimension. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right. So I'm an exec producer. I'm responsible for live at Dimension Studios and DNEG 360.
It's very new, isn't it? The live segment of Dimension.
Yes, it is. We've only launched it in the last month, but it's probably been a year in the making. So I joined the company just over a year ago with the main aim is to look at how we can leverage everything that we do and we do so well for film and virtual production, episodic, how we can utilize that for the live events industry. So workflows, skills, experience, technologies that are typically not available or made available to the live events industry. I've spent a year understanding what we do and how that can be best repurposed and delivered into live events. And that could be a whole range of different live events, from concerts, shows, theatre. Live music's been an immediate focus, but also location-based experiences, visitor experiences.
What inspired Dimension to do that kind of transition from safer studio area, you plan, you get your days in, whatever you need, to that kind of live event experience where it's all got to go well on that one moment?
So my background is as a live events producer and project director, and I had been working on a project with Steve Jelly, who's the CEO and one of the founders of Dimension. And this was a creative project. It's a contemporary dance piece with an artist, essentially a contemporary opera, using a single performer in a motion capture suit. So an Xsense motion capture suit, and they would be generating and driving real-time graphics. We did a thin slice of this project funded by an Epic mega grant. And as part of this process of working with Steve and the team at Dimension, what became clear is that the tools that they were using to produce technical visualization in Unreal Engine were really useful for live events and something that I hadn't considered before. So as a producer, being able to get a high quality technical visualization that combined all the different disciplines is something that was really difficult. So for example, if you wanted to visualize set and staging, you would use perhaps Vectorworks. And if you wanted lighting, it used to be WYSIWYG, and now increasingly people use Depends. But there isn't really a single tool that enables you to visualize an entire show, or to have something that's iterative, so that you would design, develop, and deliver using the same pipeline. Typically, you would go back and forth across the different disciplines, and it would take you a lot of time and money to be able to come to a final design. So working with Steve and the team at Dimension, it became apparent that there were lots of benefits of using real-time tools that were commonplace for film and episodic for virtual production, and that they would be applicable and save time and money for live events. So we were able to design, visualize quite quickly this show. And what that meant is that before you go into to pre-production, so before we go into a test rehearsal or a technical rehearsal, and we're hiring a space, we're hiring lighting, sound, all of the equipment that we would need, and the labor and the people to do that, and all the ancillary costs of travel, hotels, catering, we could get to a much more accurate technical visualization. So previously, I've had it where I would go into technical rehearsal and we put all the lighting and the LED and the panels up there, and we would look at it and go, "That's not big enough. We need more of this or less of that." And then you would have to pay the same people to remove whatever it is and add more to it, and that's all time and money. And increasingly, the costs of production for live events have gone up year on year. So it became a commercial decision that would impact on your creative. So, if you're a big production, then that's quite a bit of money and maybe you'll be able to bear that. But if you're a smaller or mid-sized production, the cost of change at that point in the process can be quite challenging. So, being able to reduce the cost and increase the creativity through use of real time tools became really, really attractive. And that was really kind of a big turning point and a big moment for both Steve and I, myself as a producer and Steve as a specialist in virtual production, to say that actually there's a synergy between two industries here that don't typically work together. So
Yeah.
we sat on a path that actually there's a bigger picture to be able to leverage real-time technologies for real-world applications and to bring Unreal Engine into the world of live events. It's not a simple shift because the film and the virtual production industry, although it uses the same tools and there are a lot of common skills, there's a slightly different nomenclature. So they'll use a different word for this than you would use for
Yeah.
that. And there's a process of transition. So understanding and getting my head into the virtual production world and industry and understanding how you can best translate that so that it's never a great word to use, but so it's frictionless. And what it means is that if you're a live events producer, brand rights holder, we're not asking you to do something in a different way than you would do normally. So we're lightening the load rather than saying you need to work in this way. And that's the same as the co-producing model that virtual production is applied to films. So Steve was saying that typically you would find that virtual production is added on to the end of a film when actually, if it's integrated from the outset, it will save you money as part of an end-to-end process rather than simply being able to do some pickup shots, typical VP work. So there's a wider perspective through integration. So we approached it in that same way as an end-to-end toolkit and ecosystem and looked at it and said, well, how can we ensure that rather than this being fit for one project, so we ended up building something that worked well for a project, but you looked at it and, well, is it worth looking at this in more granular detail and exploring each step?
Yeah.
So we decided to, rather than focusing on a project, focus on a process and build a process that was fit for multiple projects. So what we did was essentially start at looking at creating an ecosystem. To do this, we partnered with a venue on Tottenham Court Road called Here at the Outer Net. It's a new multi-purpose venue. Essentially, it's 1,500 capacity nightclub space, and we got on really well with the owners and operators in terms of their vision for creating new forms of entertainment really fit with ours. So what we did, first of all, was we ingested their building models. So we took the CAD plans of the building, 3D CAD plans, and imported them into Unreal Engine. Now, previously, when we've tried doing that, the importing of the model is quite heavy, so it grinds the system to a halt. But fortunately, over the course of the year, the technology had really improved to the point where it didn't grind to a halt, it was seamless to ingest.
So also, you mentioned Steve. Is that Steve Jelly, the
Yes.
MD of
Yeah.
Dimension? Yeah.
Yeah, Steve and I have worked together now for probably 5 years. So this came out of an idea maybe 3 years ago. And then we said, well, there's something in this. And Steve and I got on really, really well. He's very visionary and very capable. He's a great entrepreneur. And I think from my background, we got a lot of common ground and a lot of shared sort of spirit and intention there.
I think for our audience, we should probably just cover a bit of your background. I remember seeing on your profile you've been involved in quite a lot of massive. Like there was a Super Bowl, was there that I saw on your?
Yes, so my background is in large scale and special projects for live events. So typically, I would work with artists working with new technologies and doing things for the first time. So I enjoy the challenge of that and doing things that involve multiple stakeholder and challenging environments. So
Yeah,
I originally worked for a number of different agencies doing that. So I worked for Ignite, that was then Wasserman. So I worked on Vodafone projects around the world, delivering a wide range of things for the first time. Then worked for the team with Jack Morton as the show producer for the London New Year's Eve fireworks. So a different type of project, but one with inherent scale and multiple stakeholder challenges.
how do you come into a job like this? Is this very much a case of someone's like, right, we want to do this crazy new thing with this new technology? I know a guy, and you're the guy. Is that the kind of way? Like, what's the kind of like birth of of something like that? Like when you took over on the London New Year's, for example, how does one kind of get involved? What's the thought process that leads to you, and then kind of what do you end up doing that leads to the kind of delivery of that?
So on all of these projects, I've worked as part of a really talented multidisciplinary team. So I'm a specialist project manager. The core skills are bringing together groups of different specialists to deliver something that they wouldn't normally be able to do individually. So, for example, the first time that I did London New Year's Eve was the world's first multi-sensory fireworks show, working with the artist Bompers and Par, and that was sponsored by Vodafone, and it was delivered by the agency Ignite. So I worked with Bombs and Power as food artists. We worked with Quantum as stadium special effects manufacturers, and we got them to retool their special effects to deliver fruit flavored fireworks to an audience of 50,000 people all at one time, stood on Victoria Embankment. We had coordinated lighting, projection onto buildings, a whole range of different things. So my core skill there is to be able to sit in the center of that and know enough to be able to talk to all the different disciplines. So
Yeah,
I'm good at being able to, I'm a good solid generalist and I'm a detailed project manager. And that's again the core of what I've progressed with through my career. I enjoy working with artists who are pushing the boundaries and using new technologies. I'm a how sort of person, so I'm very much about enabling people to do things, to do the best that they can do, and to exceed that through collaboration and partnership. And this thing about collaboration and partnership was really appealing to me talking to Dimension. So the
yeah,
team are very much natural collaborators at heart. And I found a synergy between my interest in collaborating with professionals in different disciplines in events to the way that virtual production connects with storytellers and people in film.
yeah.
It felt like there was a common approach that would give you a foundation to be able to develop skills from virtual production into live.
So you are the dream guy of like, right, I want to do this crazy thing. And then they go through whatever company that you're working with or things. And you're like, right, we got this team here, these people here. And you kind of
Yeah,
unify something.
I really enjoy working with artists and creatives who've got a big idea, but they don't know how to deliver that. So,
Yeah.
my skill is to understand a vision and then break it down into constituent parts and work with a delivery team to ensure that that idea is delivered, but it's delivered consistent so that you don't dilute or you don't deviate from the original idea. So
Yeah.
I'm championing a creative idea through a delivery pipeline.
What's been the most rewarding example of that, of a project that you've managed that's you've been able to kind of deliver something that was thought,
Um,
possibly more
there are
difficult?
honestly a lot of moments through my career. I guess in my younger part of my career, I would always pick the larger, bigger scale moments, the ones where you're doing things. So London New Year's Eve fireworks is a big national moment of
Yeah.
celebration, and it's an absolute honour to have worked on that. And similarly, working with a team at Wasserman for London 2012. So we turned the London Eye into the EDF Energy of the Nation activation, and that showed the sentiment in the UK towards the Olympics, and that was working with a team of data scientists from MIT, the guys from So Limited, and lighting directors to turn it into a giant pie chart. And that
Yeah.
was a very rewarding piece. And then we took the same idea and we did it for the Super Bowl in New York on the Empire State Building, working with the lighting designer and artist Mark Brickman. And that was, again, hugely rewarding to be able to do that on, again, in the US, a moment of national celebration. So we played the
Yeah.
Star Spangled Banner on the Empire State Building during the Super Bowl, which was an amazing moment, a real pleasure to be involved with. So I guess at my earlier part of the career, some of those bigger moments, but I would think on wider reflection, the bigger ones for me are probably the ones where I've learned the most. I've had real pleasure to work with the designer and creative director Willie Williams and Sam Patterson from Treatment on the off-tour events for U2 for Experiencing Innocence. That was an absolute pleasure because I learned so much from Willie and Sam. And I
Yeah.
think that says a lot that the older you get, the more it is about learning and improving what you can do and your experience rather than scale.
That experience is exactly what you need as someone to connect those things up. Someone's like, oh, I want to do some big event with fireworks, or fireworks you can taste, or all these kind of. I want to light up a building. The kind of being able to. Oh no, I've experienced this, and kind of having that.
Part of it is the baseline of it is in project planning and being able to break down a big idea into its constituent
Yeah,
parts so it's manageable and able to be delivered, and being really diligent with the reality of a situation and understanding what a production route is. So I'm quite a technical producer. So I can understand and talk to different disciplines with a reasonable degree of literacy to understand what's possible and what's not, and then to be able to manage that back through a project. So you've got a real level of feasibility and due diligence built into the sort of discipline, core discipline of project management.
yeah,
I think once you've got those core skills, you can apply it to lots of different things. And it gives you confidence as you go over time to do things that perhaps would seem on face value to have a high level of risk. But actually, when you break them down, you know full well that they're clearly
yeah,
deliverable. So there's a big piece in this around management and mitigation of risk. So
yeah.
risk planning. And that was really evident in large scale public events.
The thing that I admire about what you're saying, and the thing that I really love is that kind of focus and help on the process. Like that's the thing I love as well. I'm a big process guy of like sometimes like the thing that takes the most time is finding that process. Once you have the process, to deliver whatever you want to, that it's then a lot easier to kind of channel things through. Is there a core kind of process that you've brought through your career up to this point?
Yeah, so my approach to project planning has always been split into three core elements, and you can then break them down further into subcategories. But it is a really standard sort of define, design, deliver
Yeah,
methodology. So in terms of understanding what your objectives are, what are you trying to achieve, or what does success look like? What are the KPIs? And that's really, really standard stuff. And then looking at resource planning and timescales associated with that. From a definition phase, being able to then take that into a design phase, so detail and development, and then looking at all the process and eventualities, doing your planning, and that
yeah,
enables you to go into a delivery phase fully resourced and with the confidence that you're able to deliver against what your objectives are. So there's a level of
yeah,
clarity, communication, resource planning through that. Increasingly, we've referenced that to more architectural planning and REBA planning, which
mm,
can break it down into further subsets and segmentation. I find that the event planning has become a lot more detailed over the past years, and people use different methodologies and tools to make that work. But the fundamentals, as I see them, are very much within these three buckets of definition, clarity and understanding, the detail in the design and planning, and then the strength in the execution and delivery.
so when working with creatives, like I think as being a technical person myself, but also very creative, that one of the challenges I often find is actually defining that clarity, and often like having someone who is really good at working out that clarity. And so I just want a big image. I want to put a face on a building. But getting that clarity of like what does success look like? What is your KPIs? What are your goals? Is there ways that you use to extract that out of someone or an idea that may not be as well defined?
Yes, it depends. Lots of different creatives approach their process in different ways. But I think ultimately getting to the heart of what they're trying to achieve and what the message or the purpose is really important. So
Yeah.
often, as you would say, there's a delivery mechanic that's already defined. So I would like to project a thing on a building. Well, why are you trying to do that, and what
Yeah.
are you trying to achieve with that, and is that the best method of doing that? So to be able to sort of guide, challenge, steer, and advise people on how they might be able to achieve their objectives, what other technologies they might be able to bring to bear. Because people are typically guided by what they know in terms of what technologies are applicable. And a
Yeah.
lot of that will come from desk research and things that you'll find on the internet. And often you'll find that people will appropriate different technologies that perhaps aren't the best way of delivering something. So to be able to interrogate the brief and understand what the creative intent is, and then to shape a delivery mechanic that may be exactly what you've originally set out with. It may be, that the first answer is the right answer, but it may be that the delivery mechanic is something completely different.
Yeah.
We've seen this before where projects have started out as one thing. They've started out as a concert or an opera, and they've ending up as an installation. So
Mm.
being able to help and work with and be part of that creative team and add value to that, I think is really important, but also it's hugely enjoyable. And I think you can
Yeah.
get satisfaction through helping guide and shape creative to deliver something that is better than the original or provides an improved version of the original rather than simply being a vendor where you simply deliver against a brief. And I think that's part of that's a role of a really good creative producer, and something that we see very much with the exec producers in film, that
Mm.
they will help shape an idea and deliver it in a way that realizes the director's vision but adds value to it through the experience of the producing team.
That was I once worked for a management consultancy that did a lot of project, and it was always about enabling and empowering
It's
as
a good word.
opposed to just like, yeah, just doing what they're asking. And I do find that that's a big difference. So when it comes to something like Dimension Live, then, so you've had all this experience, you're very good at working with creators to deliver those things. You kind of connected with Steve Jelly, looking at the kind of the virtual production technology, which in the scheme of things is still very new. The idea of using that kind of thing for film and TV is not that old comparatively to a lot of other technologies. And the fact that we're now able to escalate, like you said, it was originally almost like for pickups and backgrounds. Now it's like, I've been talking to people who use them to film entire shows and films or like backdrops. And I can definitely completely see that kind of line going across to these kinds of live events. Is there much difference in that process compared to like film and TV, I guess, of someone coming to you for a live event idea? So I basically, I suppose the purpose of me asking this is kind of put the listener or to get the reader to see like an example of like that experience of coming to Dimension Live and having a creative concept to deliver something. Like what is that process, I guess, that you've been working on?
So for live events, it's always been a challenge to be able to look at technologies and have the time to and the budgets to apply to R&D them properly, and to ensure that the
Mm,
solution is robust enough to stand up to a live event delivery. If you're delivering a film and a shot doesn't work, you can shoot it again. But if
yeah.
you're delivering a moment to a live audience, it's got to work 100% the first time that you do it. So the robust nature of what we're doing, especially using emerging technologies, is quite a challenge, and that's
Mm,
been a real focus for us to ensure that the development work and the due diligence has been done. Now, if you're a live events agency or a producer, often you won't have the time or the budgets to thoroughly investigate new technologies or to have technologies that are applied. So, combining different technologies towards a single outcome. And because we've got such a large team, both in the applied technologies division, but also in Unreal, and there's deep knowledge there from working in real time for a longer period of time. So, a background and a history in gaming, VR, and
yeah.
AR that is all relevant. Our teams are able to come up with solutions a lot quicker that are a lot more robust. So, being able to leverage real time technologies or whether these are AI machine learning technologies has been really, really quite something new and different.
Mm,
Looking at what we're doing in mocap, Volcat, and these are core services, and the translation and use of metahumans, virtual humans into live events. So being able to talk to a team of people who are specialists and will tell you not just what can be done, but more importantly, what can't be done is completely invaluable,
Mm.
because getting that information and getting clarity of that information otherwise is really difficult. There are lots of smaller specialist providers who will be aligned to a single technology, and they're always going to tell you that that works. There are a lot of people who
Yeah.
will tell you that it works and then they'll work out how to do it. But if it's new and emerging technology and you've only got one shot to make it sure it's right, and you've got a set budget, there's a level of risk attached to that,
Mm.
because pipelines are often not quite as robust as you would like them to do. Plus, technology is moving and changing all the time. So, the change over time that we've seen in real time technologies and that I've seen since I've joined the company in metahumans, virtual humans, and use of AI is quite rapid. And unless you're actively engaged in that on a fundamental and an in depth level, and you're working with manufacturers on large scale projects, it's really difficult to be able to say for certain that I would want to invest time and money in a specific technology.
Mm.
So the scale and depth of dimension and DNEG 360 and the amazing work that they do in feature films is really, for me as an individual, unbelievably exciting. And it's a sort of money can't buy toolbox that just is something that I've never been able to experience before. Being able to talk to people who are unbelievably focused on these technologies and are working with them on a day-to-day basis gives me an insight and an ability that I just wouldn't have elsewhere.
When you talk about due diligence and things on those technologies, like what kinds of testing do you put things through? Because once again, I can imagine it's all about doing it, I suppose, before it comes to a client, because then they save that money on the amount of time it would need to kind of do that testing. Is that the kind of
Yeah, so our applied technology division, mocap, and the character division, Unreal Engine teams are consistently testing new technologies and developments working with manufacturers. So we work with Epic. We've got an RTX build of Unreal Engine that enables us to deliver photorealistic real time rendering that is simply not possible using the out of the box version. And you'll see that and on feature films. So most recently used on Roland Emmerich's Those About to Die and the Masters of the Air with Tom Hanks and Steven Spielberg. So the quality of rendering for a single pass render in Unreal is quite something to be seen and something that you wouldn't see elsewhere, let alone be seen and utilized in live events. So that's a really good example where we're joined at the hip with the technology
yeah,
providers, and we're not just able to understand what's current technology, but to understand the future and the pipeline of that, so that you're able to say with confidence that we're going to use this now and this technology is future proofed, so that in 6 months' time or a year's time, it'll still be relevant.
yeah,
So, this is the same with, or probably more so, with metahumans, virtual humans, and use of AI, being able to better forecast the where technology is going because you're joined up to it, or you've got an in-depth knowledge and you're aligned to the development pipelines of manufacturers, is something that you wouldn't typically see outside of the industry. So
yeah,
we are at heart collaborators, and we work well with technology divisions of manufacturers of these
yeah,
products, software and services, and being able to bring those technologies together in one place, and whether that's real-time technologies for film or for my purposes to bring those technologies together for live events, is quite a unique offering. And
mm,
the ability to do so with confidence that these technologies and the pipeline that you're building or the ecosystem is future proofed as much as it can be, so that you're able to apply developing technologies to a pipeline rather than have to do the back and forth that you might have to do in a traditional VFX pipeline. So the use of real time and Unreal Engine, and we use a lot of Touch Designer over the top of it, enables us to be truly iterative in the way that we're working. So
yeah,
that what we're doing is at each stage and each new development adds strength and it adds value to a pipeline, rather than saying, right, we're going to have to stop and upgrade or retool this.
Yeah.
So it gains momentum and it's like a giant ball rolling downhill rather than something that has to tack back and forth to stay abreast of new technology and developments.
That makes total sense to me. So, like, and yeah, I guess it is helpful, like, when things aren't rendering properly, having enough experts or even people that have helped build it on your side to kind of like troubleshoot and work out very
Yeah,
quickly.
the example with partnering with here at the Outernet and creating a digi double of their venue, it's helped us look at real time rendering of a virtual space. And then we've tested virtual lighting within that space, the ability to simultaneously control real world and virtual lighting using virtual cameras onto a screen. And if we didn't have our technical supervisors in the on-set team, that would be really, really difficult, and the quality of the final pixel that they're used to delivering for virtual production in film is different in terms of how you would approach it for live events, because you simply don't need that level of fidelity or control, because a moment in a live event lasts for a moment, whereas if you're shooting something, then it's going to be scrutinized at a much greater degree and it lives forever. So the mathematical precision that we're seeing from the technical teams is way beyond what I would typically see in the live events industry. And that's no diss to the live events industry. It's just a slightly different approach in terms of the level of detail that they're looking at. So, for example, we have a partnership and we work with Row on panel detail for LED. So, being able to approach that and color profiles in a really granular way enables us to deliver something that's unbelievably precise and hugely optimized. So, virtual production for LED volumes, we're using exactly the same technology you would use in live events, but you're using it in a different way. And to be able to apply that technical know how to live events means you can really up the game of what you can deliver.
And so that process for here at Outernet, how that was it a 3 year process? Was that what I saw?
No, so we've been working with them for just over a year. So we
Just over a year.
created a digi double of the venue, the technology and the handling of geometry in Unreal has kind of caught up with where we wanted it to be. So it moves with zero latency and it really supports the ability to create accurate models of real world spaces,
Yeah.
and aligned to the new developments around megalights. That really does mean that you get a rendering that is photorealistic using a single pass renderer, which isn't something that you would be able to do before. The ability for us then to relay that with custom cameras in the virtual world onto a real world LED screen, and for you not to realize that you're looking at a screen is quite something. So we did
Yeah.
a whole series of tests last month, and we've done two live tests, live gigs with electronic artists. So the first one we did was with the artist Floating Points and his visual team, Hamill Industries, and the lighting director, Will Potts. And we ran a show where we provided essentially a virtual venue extension. So the artist is playing in front of a large LED screen, and we've projected onto that LED screen an extension. So what we've done is taken our Unreal model, we've extended the venue as if it is three times the length it is, and then we've mapped the existing real world lighting into the virtual and connected it all together so the lighting director, in this instance Will, can play with the lights as if he's got three times as many as he's got. And it makes the venue, rather than looking like a 1,500 capacity nightclub, it makes it look like a massive aircraft hangar. So what we're doing there is adding depth and new creative possibilities and testing our abilities to deliver real world and virtual lighting that's synchronous and you're unable to see the difference. So that's the bedrock of a virtual or a hybrid show, similar to what you would see at Aber Voyage. But what we're doing is running it in real time off a desk. So with
Wow.
Floating Points, he played four different shows and they were all completely different. So the first one he started with 10 minutes of Heart, which was amazing and very beautiful, quite serene. The second one was 10 minutes of sort of really dark and dirty techno. And unless you had real time control, you'd really struggle to create those two
Yeah.
different looks using a VFX pipeline and system. You would really have to just play clips. So, what we've done is created a toolkit that enables live events producers, in this instance, a lighting director and a VJ, Anna from Hamill. It gives them a toolkit that they wouldn't otherwise be able to access. And we're giving them and we're offering this up in a way that is completely at ease with them. So Will is we're assigning this all onto his existing lighting desk, and we're running all of Anna's VJ stuff into Resolve, which is she's already using. So we're not, and this was critical to our approach, is that we wanted to give people tools that were easy to use with their existing skills. So we're not asking anyone to, you'll have to learn these new skills or do anything different that would reduce your ability to play a show in an intuitive way that you do.
Mm.
So we're not changing the tools at hand. We are expanding them, making them easier and better to use.
Yeah, and that basically will then go on to that will connect with the virtual background on the LED wall for everything they
Yeah.
need as
So,
well.
so the bedrock of it is lighting, and we tested that initially with floating points. We also added some extension of geometry into that, so created some additional LED columns and a back wall that we were able to map video content to. And more recently, we tested that at a second event with the artist Norwegian band Roitsop, and that was working with
Oh,
their LD David Ross, who's absolutely fantastic. And it was
yeah.
interesting because he uses a lighting desk in a very different way. He plays it like an instrument. It's quite amazing and something to see. And we'd upgraded our system, so hardware and software, to enable a wider range of lighting effects. And he played it first of all in many different stages through this show. It was over 3 hours. So originally, or starting off with virtual lighting that's simply extended, so you couldn't tell which lights are real and which are virtual. So it
Mhm.
made the space look a lot bigger. We then added geometry into that, so large lettering, and played with masking effects. So you're really starting to see depth and variation in the look. And then we added a 3D logo into it. And then in the final part of the show, we took all the virtual elements out of it, and David abstracted the lighting to create graphic forms. So it took it from being a photorealistic extension or set extension, if you will, into something that was much more fantasy. So if you were at the event and enjoying that as an experience, it really helped take you on a sort of journey with the music. It's really nice to see. And what we're offering up is a creative tool that enabled the lighting director to really push the boundaries of what you can do with lighting in a live show context.
That's awesome. Do you know what? I remember I'd been Glastonbury over the course of multiple times. And in 2008, it was only the main stage that had any kind of video element.
Yeah.
And the thing I couldn't get over, I went 2, 3 years ago, and I couldn't get over how even the small stages had some kinds of video elements that were reacting to the songs, like with or VJ elements and things like that. And I can imagine artists to be able to like extend your lighting, so it's not just an image on the screen and then your lighting's doing something else. It's kind of creating a unified space, isn't it? For
So what we're doing is blurring the boundaries between lighting and virtual and real world production.
yeah,
And we're doing that using real time rendering in Unreal, but also quite a lot of control and manipulation using Touch Designer. That's a very powerful tool in the right hands. What that's enabling us to do is to connect multiple sources and use Unreal Engine essentially as a hub, as a rendering tool, which is
I
amazingly
see.
powerful and very good at. And you would expect that that will develop over time to become an industry standard. The other applications for this that are really interesting, and we've primarily been focusing on lighting because that's the sort of the beating heart of any show.
Mm.
But you can add any sort of geometry into this, and you can do it in real time. So we ran a series of tests. I think it was the week before last, and we added virtual set into that. So if you're designing a stage show and you want to see what the set looks like in your theatre, we can create a digidouble, a virtual version of that theatre, and you can light it and see exactly how those lights might be.
Looks.
And this is great if you've got, you don't have to build the set. You can then adapt the set in virtually before you construct it physically. And you can also change and work out your lighting. And using the collaborative function in Unreal, you could have multiple people viewing this virtual world at once. So you could have a
Yeah.
dramaturg, a producer, and a lighting director all working through a show to look at, well, I think you should make that bigger or change that. And that can combine both real world physical set, scenic, lighting, and video. And the final element, the sort of big piece of the puzzle, is the application of motion capture and meta humans, virtual humans. So
Yes.
That is really the sort of that's a core part of our business. So we do meta humans, virtual humans, and digital crowds for feature films. And for me, it's kind of the home straight. That's the kind of bit that will add on to this that will really turn it into something new and something completely different. So the reference that we always get is the ABBA show. It's like, are you going to do an ABBA show?
Yeah.
And the idea is not to do an ABBA show. It's an amazing show. ILM have done such a brilliant job on it, but we're not looking to recreate. What we're doing, trying to do, is to create a hybrid show that works in real time, that uses real world and virtual lighting, but also enables, because it's real time, interaction between real world performers and virtual performers. So
Yeah.
we do this in film already. So you will have virtual extras who are in motion capture suits in a separate room, and they will interact with real world actors who are in a volume in the foreground. And there's
Yeah.
no reason you can't do that for live performance. So to have virtual extras, cast and crew, you could have those as being dancers or singers, and they can interact in real time with a performer. So imagine you're a singer and you want to do a duet with somebody who isn't able to be there. No, there's no reason you couldn't do that virtually, and because you, as an audience member, you can't see the difference between the virtual and the real world. It looks like a real extension. You can make that possible, and that could be interactive, as in that can be real time interactive. So I could have a conversation as an interviewer or as a host with a virtual performer, and that could be obviously real as it is
Mm.
in real time. So what we're trying to do is create a new form of entertainment, new creative possibilities using real-time tools rather than replicating something that's been done so well with a traditional VFX pipeline. So, there's no reason you can't have any object that your heart's desire pop up out of the floor, somebody get into it, provide a demonstration of that, and to have a real world host in front of it talking to
Yeah.
you and diving into that. There really are a huge amount of possibilities for
Yeah.
this.
And in spaces where you have that technology set up, like here at Alternet, is that the kind of thing now that like a creative can come in and go, right, I've got this stage piece and I want to have 10 different versions of me. And I suppose, does that mean like the overhead for creating something like that is a lot less because a lot of the technology is already built into the space?
Yes, so we're really excited to be partnering with the team here at the Outernet to be able to use that not just as a presentation space, but also an opportunity for creatives to develop their ideas. So to be able to look at something and say, well, actually, I would rather that be a different color or a different shape. And because we're working in real time, you're able to change geometries, colors, movement on the fly, and that's something that's been developed for virtual production in film, is the flexibility that's been required in these big episodic productions is something that you can bring to the design of live events. Being able to iterate and think on your feet because it renders in real time is a massive bonus. So rather than a traditional VFX pipeline where if you would like to move an object, you would have to re-render it and we all come back in several hours or days, um, we can do this largely in real time. The time that it takes to take a new idea or a development of an idea from a concept into something that you can see and you can test in front of you, that flexibility and the ability to do so has reduced. And that's creatively is an amazing tool for you to be able to
Yeah.
see your ideas technically visualized and realized in front of you in near real time is really the future of this type of design and something that we would expect to see more and more of. You're seeing it now in large scale films, and that will trickle down into live events, shows, concerts, and a
Yeah.
whole range of other performances. It's really exciting to see new technologies, new emerging developing technologies applied to the world of live events. For me, I've worked in live events all my life, and to be at a period which feels like a rapid period of development, to sort of be riding that wave and be at the forefront of it is hugely exciting. It is such a period of technological change that we're seeing, not just in film and live events, but in the world generally. And to be able to see that applied in ways that will enable creative possibilities that will make productions accessible to people who wouldn't be able to normally do this. So the cost of producing shows has dramatically increased over the past few years. Cost of production, the cost of labor, time, materials has grown, and that creates a barrier to entry for people who've got amazing and great ideas, and they will never see those ideas realized because the cost of developing them and getting them to the point of the production is quite prohibitive. So by enabling and making that possible through the use of virtual production technologies to go from an initial idea to essentially a proof of concept and a finished article quite quickly and more cost effectively. Hopefully, it will make it more accessible and enable these people who've got entry mid level ideas to be able to take those ideas to new audiences. And I find that really, really exciting. There are lots of people who've got great creative ideas, young creatives who want to do new things. And for me, I'm not the youngest person on the block, and to be able to help that new talent get their ideas out to a wider
Yeah.
audience and to see people enjoy them and to feed off that passion is really, really great. I'm absolutely
Yeah.
loving that.
Yeah, it's amazing, and it democratizes it as well because like using even stuff like lighting, having access to either spaces or to lighting to understand the differences between those things. You need like a gateway in. You need to have access to these things, but if you do it virtually, really you just need access to almost like the
Yeah.
virtual space and the kinds of things to kind of enable people to really think out.
We've got really, really strongly developed workflows and tool sets from film that enable artists and teams to collaborate really, really
Yeah.
easily. And what's been interesting over the past few months is to work with new and emerging artists who are really just starting with this technology and to help apply some real rigor and muscle to them to enable them to actually take their idea and progress it. So being able to, the way that we've developed our systems enables us to plug in and connect other people's tools and technologies. So we're able to, it's a funny way of describing it, to turbocharge other people's work and take it into a professional space at a much higher level than perhaps you would have been able to do on your own. And I think for us as a company, we love to enable them to collaborate and to work with people and to help them shape their idea and transform it into something that is better than it could have been. And to see the smile on the face and to see that people are actually getting to deliver their dream.
Are there any examples of future projects coming up or ideas that have already been, kind of bubbling away that or that you've seen already that you think that you're most excited for?
Well, I don't know. We can talk about it. So we're looking at doing some. The best way of describing it. So, how do you describe it without saying exactly what it is? So, we're working with a team at Glastonbury Festival at the minute to see how we can apply some of our new technologies to enable one of the installations to be more accessible. So, there are
Mhm.
some genuine physical barriers to entry that would stop people who are unable to go upstairs and perform certain tasks to be able to enjoy one of the installations. So we're looking at how we can apply some of the technologies that we use in film and virtual production to enable that to be accessible to a wider audience. So how are we addressing people who've got mobility issues to ensure that actually they can enjoy this experience? So there
Yeah.
is there's a wider picture, and there are some different ways in which we can apply technologies, and these are not the same technologies that we're talking about in terms of lighting and presentation
Yeah.
or shows. We're looking at different technologies that have come from our applied technologies division. That's a
Cool.
terrible way of putting it.
You got secret projects at Glastonbury.
Yeah,
That's all I'm hearing.
we've got a secret
No,
project at Glastonbury that we're not allowed to talk to anybody
no.
about, but it's very, very exciting.
So I have two more areas I just want to quickly have a check in just out of interest. So one is hardware. So obviously all of this kind of real time rendering RTX stuff is going to require like beast kind of machines. Like, so what kind of solutions do you use for that? Because that's probably one of the bigger barriers to entry for a lot of places. Because like you're going to need multi £1,000 machines separately, and I suppose that, unlike something like a sound desk that potentially you can have for decades, those machines in at least in parts are going to need upgrading to kind of do the more and more elaborate kinds of things. So, like, what kind of hardware are you working with, and what do you do to
So
kind of reconcile that kind of technology?
So our computers that we use for real time rendering are, even to my cursory knowledge, are quite powerful.
Yeah,
The other thing is that the teams know exactly what they're doing in terms of optimization of those machines in relation to what we're doing. So yeah, we're very well supported. We obviously own and we build our own hardware, and we have a really strong team who are able to do that.
yeah, no, that definitely that makes 100%
The other
sense.
part of that is, again, coming back to collaboration, we're working with manufacturers. So, working with panel manufacturers such as Rowe, we have a great partnership with them. Robotics manufacturers, NVIDIA are a great partner for us to be able to understand not just what the current technology will do, but to work as a beta tester and as a partner to see where new technology can be
Yeah,
applied to a rendering pipeline to improve things. So
yeah.
that connection at a very fundamental level to hardware manufacturers and providers, it really does give us access that you wouldn't get otherwise.
So I suppose the final area I just wanted to that we kind of mentioned but we haven't kind of fully covered in detail that I'd be interested in is you were talking about the use of AI. So like what kind of AI technologies are you using? What kind of things is it speeding up or not? How are you using AI as part of the live events?
So we use AI within our real-time rendering to enable a whole load of features that you wouldn't typically see, and that's within Unreal Engine renderer. So we have our own RTX build of that includes AI and machine learning, and that
Yeah,
really is much more complicated than I can understand. As I said, I'm a generalist, and I
yeah,
couldn't tell you what it does, but I can tell you that it looks amazingly cool. And as you said, we've seen things that simply do not, I can't work out. I'm reasonably technically adept, but it's beyond my comprehension. And we're fortunate that we've got an applied technology division that are not just able to do this stuff, but to explain it to me in reasonable layman's terms. So not just to be able to do something that's amazing, but to be able to explain broadly how it works and what the limitations of it are. So again, we're fortunate that we're supported by such a great team. The use of AI in virtual production is growing, and that's something that we have a team of specialists who work on. It's quite a large team as well. So
yeah,
you're seeing that and system integration between AI and traditional VP. This is developmental and emerging technologies being combined for feature films. So the work that our team have recently done combining the work from Metaphysic and VP backgrounds on the Tom Hanks, Bob Zemeckis film
yeah,
Here,
yeah,
Robin Wright, is again is quite groundbreaking. Similarly, some of the stuff that our team are doing in mocap, Tim Doubleday and that team working with Vicon, Moses, Optitrack, people like that, is pushing the boundaries of the application of technology for feature films, and exactly the same tool sets and technologies are applicable to live events. So I work very closely with those two teams to look at, well, if you've got a specific challenge that would be required for live events, then how can you apply those technologies? So we did an activation for Omega at the Olympics. So this summer, last summer, where you had the ability, or the activation was that you would be able to select and run against an Olympic athlete. So I think it was Noah Lyles and Hannah Cockcroft, a couple of others. So we created metahuman virtual athletes, and you were then able to run against them. You get in your sprinters blocks, and you set off, and you'd run over 10 meters against your virtual opponent. And our team developed some live rotoscoping tools that enabled you to do that without the requirement for a green screen, and it would do it in real time and serve that up as a shareable clip.
oh
Uh,
wow,
and we couldn't work out where they got this from, and we dug into it, and it was a custom piece of AI that they developed for film and then applied to an activation. So our team are very, very good at finding tools that don't exist anywhere else and then being able to apply them. So the ability to adapt and flexibility is probably more important than the ability to plan, because we genuinely, and I don't think anybody does, know that the what the speed of change will enable in 6 months' time.
Yeah.
But all you know is that it is changing at a rapid rate, and what you need to be able to do is to adapt and move with that. So it's kind of riding the wave rather than trying to push through it. And our systems and our approaches enabled us to do that. This idea of creating an iterative ecosystem that enables you to leverage new and emerging technologies rather than you wedding yourself to something that's existing now, but perhaps could be outdated in 6 months' time.
Yeah.
It's been a principle of the business that served us well and is fundamental in virtual production, that is really, really strong when applied to live events, because often your timings and your budgets are a lot less. So we go to market a lot quicker on live
Mhm.
events, and you only get one shot. So having something that is able to adapt and change and move and is more fluid, is really important.
Yeah. Do you have any do you have contingencies built in? So if you have like certain things that would activate and then maybe they don't, or certain is there like, right, okay, we can't use this part, but we can use this part instead?
Yeah, the team are, yeah, they're really, really strong in terms of redundancy. I've been hugely impressed by it. Specifically, I was concerned when I originally joined the company and started looking at projects that you have this fundamental understanding that if a film's, if you do a shot and it doesn't work, you can just go back, rewind, and do it again. Whereas you don't have that luxury with a live event. But what was interesting is that the team have really been able to apply their skills to live events, and the requirement for immediacy, you don't have that freedom to fail, to rewind, to go and do it again. So
Mm.
there's a lot of redundancy built into the work that we're doing, and there's a level of risk planning. So it's been interesting working on a project recently where the team have looked at it and gone, well, we're really pushing the boundaries on this. And if it doesn't quite work, we can always switch to this.
Yeah.
So it's been refreshing to see that rather than something doesn't work, so we spend time fixing it, actually, they've got an immediate plan B.
Yeah.
So that approach to keep moving, and to be able to not be constrained by technologies, but to be able to be bold, to try new things.
Yeah.
And sometimes you'll try new things that don't fully work, but actually to have a plan B to say, well, that didn't work, we'll do this instead. And that's going to still deliver on what you wanted to do.
And that was my chat with Mark Bustard, executive producer for the brand new division of live events, Dimension Studio. I'm really excited for the future of gigs, and I really admire the way that they're looking at this technology to kind of bring new people in, to kind of help achieve their vision. So you don't just have to be a Coldplay or a Taylor Swift to achieve the kinds of heights of what your imagination can bring. So no, thank you so much again, Mark, for that chat. And thank you guys so much for listening. And we'll be back in 2 weeks with another episode of the RedShark Interview podcast. And in the meantime, for more news, info, reviews, and everything else, all media technology, head on over to redsharknews.com. Bye-bye for now.